Hi, it's the Herd. Stamps save you time and money, which you can use to grow your business. I can mail any letter, any package, using a computer and printer, and the mailman picks it up. Avoid the hassle of the post office with Stamps.com and mail everything from postcards to envelopes to packages, domestic or international, from your printer. Create your Stamps account in minutes online, no equipment to lease, and no long-term commitments. Click print mail, and you're done. Stamps.com brings all the services of the U.S. Postal Service to your fingertips. You buy, you print, official U.S. postage, any letter, any package, any class, using your computer and printer. Use Stamps.com. Right now, you too can enjoy the stamp service with a special offer that includes a month trial, 4 weeks, plus postage and a digital scale without long-term commitments. Go to Stamps.com, click on the mic, put in Colin. Stamps.com, enter Colin. Stamps.com, never go to the post office again. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, we are live in Los Angeles. iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy, as always, is joining me today.
Yep, still trying to work out the whole Frenchmen in socks thing from last night or yesterday.
That's a lot to have to deal with.
Yeah.
A lot of unpacking there.
Yeah, you say a lot during the show, but that was definitely one of the strangest.
It's great to have you back. Great to have you here again today. I was thinking about this. A lot of people complain about America, but you can always tell how formidable a country is by what their primary concerns are and what their dreams are. In America, right now, Elon Musk is getting a lot of attention. He's a very smart guy. He created the Tesla. He's talking about rocket ships to Mars. That's what you worry about as a country when you're rich. Poor countries worry about feeding their citizens, building bridges and roads, infrastructure. In America, we're talking about ships to Mars, and we create apps to waste time on our iPhone 13. That's a rich country. Poor countries don't worry about apps. Poor countries worry about getting food and dictators and feeding their kids and roads and infrastructure and bridges. We've got it pretty well here. And I know we criticize a lot of anti-this and anti-that, but you can tell a lot about a country. We have people from other countries getting on rafts and risking their lives to come here. We have people running through the desert with a jug of water, 100 miles to get here. We got our issues. Pretty cool place to live. Pretty cool place to put up shop and stay here, despite all our issues. Kyrie Irving's got it pretty good too, but Kyrie Irving wants out of Cleveland and LeBron James. And I was thinking about this morning. I think Kyrie needs to see a doctor because he has what I would call the number one pick syndrome. I want a team designed around me. I'm a number one pick. I deserve a bigger shoe deal. The number one pick syndrome happens in a lot of sports. You see it a lot in the NBA with John Wall and Dwight Howard and Blake Griffin and Kyrie Irving and Derrick Rose. They complain, John Wall did, about not getting a shoe deal in the middle of a season. And Derrick Rose complains about, after signing a huge shoe deal, feeding his kids. And Blake Griffin wants the offense designed around him, although he can't shoot in a shooter's league. And Kyrie Irving wants the team designed around him, although he's playing with the best basketball player on earth for the last 14 years. You see it occasionally in football, too. The persecution syndrome from Cam Newton. Nobody cares about me. I'm a number one pick. The referees, my coaches, throwing shade at me. Russell Wilson's a third-round pick. Tom Brady's a sixth-round pick. Joe Montana, not a first-round pick. Drew Brees, not a first-round pick. They have a chip on their shoulder all these years in. There is an expectation being a number one pick in the NBA. Just an expectation. I should get a shoe deal. The team should be built around me. Kyrie Irving believes the team should be built around you. You know what? a franchise could be built around you. Except there's one little tiny issue. You're on the same team with LeBron James. Scottie Pippen could have had a team built around him. Except he understood he played with Michael Jordan. Kevin McHale could have had a team built around him. Except he played with Larry Bird. And James Worthy could have had a team built around him. But James Worthy realized, bro, I got Magic. Ain't getting better than Magic. Yes, if you're a number one pick, the expectation is often the franchise is built around you. Not all number one picks are franchise guys. There's weak drafts. They become number 2 and 3 players. And the second thing is when you land in a franchise that's got a Magic or a Bird or a Michael or maybe a Durant or a LeBron, you don't complain about it. You're a rich country. You're the lucky guy. Your country's not worrying about roads and feet. Your country's worried about a spaceship to Mars. Let's have a condo complex in Saturn. Here's a reality of the last 20 number one picks in the NBA. 2 decades. I'm not talking 2 pick, 3 pick, 4 pick. I'm talking number one pick last 20 years. There's only 2 of 20 that have a ring, and the team, they're considered stars. They're getting star-level publicity, TV, shoe deal. Kyrie's one of the two. He's got a ring. He gets star publicity and star money, star shoe deal, and he's 25. Hell, he's 25. Kyrie is complaining about what other number one picks are dreaming of. A guaranteed trip to the finals, a massive shoe deal, publicity at a star level, and you still have 7 peak years left. When I see Americans complaining about this country, it reminds me of my mother, who passed away a couple years ago. She grew up in England. It was poor. She was abused by a family member. She once got an orange for Christmas and told me throughout my childhood, was happy about it. 25 years old, have a ring, playing with this generation's Magic. Your efficiency numbers have gone up. You're getting treated like a star. Kyrie Irving has the number one pick syndrome. See a doctor. You need help. Good to have you in today. I saw this list. This was interesting. Monday Morning Quarterback Peter King's website. They list the top players in the NFL. Dak Prescott, he's way down there in the 200s. Oh, my God, the Cowboy Quad. That is outrageous. No, that's exactly where Dak Prescott should be. Do you know, Christine, he's ranked only the 7th best quarterback. That is outrageous. No, it's actually 17th best quarterback. That's exactly where he should be. Talking about entitlement. Never forget that even all of us here, Christine, John, Greg, myself, we all have different backgrounds. Some kids grow up in the suburbs and it's safe and dad has a good job and college is paid for. And some kids grow up and they got to work through college. That was me, divorced family. That's okay. Well, I had it better than a lot of kids. I didn't have big college debt coming out. I had a little bit of money for my family. I worked a couple jobs. I got out of college. I didn't have any college debt. So I had it way better than a lot of kids, but it wasn't as good as other kids who had, So just remember that everybody comes from a different place. And the journey is often longer and a little harder for other people. I consider myself to have a really good journey. I mean, I came out of college with no debt. My parents liked me. And I had a good work ethic and things worked out and I was healthy. I've never had real sickness in my family. But never forget this. Dak Prescott hit the lottery coming out of college. He has the best offensive line, the best young running back, a top star wide receiver, a Hall of Fame tight end, and a staff with several high-end offensive coaches. Russell Wilson, in his Seattle career, has had mostly weak offensive lines, never had a player as talented as Des Bryant, and has a defensive-minded staff and head coach, and already has a ring, and probably should have another. Let's be totally honest about Dak as we get ready for year 2. He is not Jameis Winston right now. He is not Eli Manning, Stafford, Carr, Flacco, Wilson, Carson Palmer, Cam Newton. I will tell you what I think happens. I think Dak Prescott is going to have a very, very nice year. And at this time next year, he is going to surpass Joe Flacco, who he's better than naturally, Carson Palmer and Eli, who show their age, and Stafford and Cam, who are mechanically not getting better. And he will be a top 12 quarterback next year. And then I think eventually Dak Prescott rises to a top 10 quarterback, but never top 5. But this is one of the things I've been saying about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is a better quarterback than everybody in this league statistically, except Rodgers, Breeze, and Brady. He has had to overcome a lot more than people understand. Dak Prescott, and I like Dak, and I never thought he would be nearly this good. When this all clears, I don't believe he's a top 5 quarterback. I think he'll be 5 to 10 quarterback. But today, 17th is exactly where Dak Prescott is. I could make an argument Marcus Mariota, rated below him on this list, is better. I'm not sure he is, but I could certainly make the argument because he's got 2 years in this league of throwing, 25-level touchdowns, over 60% completion rate, and being in the league for 2 years. But when I read this survey, my initial thought was, oh, God, people are going to push back. I went online this morning, people pushing back. That's exactly where Dak Prescott should be. All right, a new study came out, and the anti-football crowd is got everybody stirred up. We'll talk about that more. Some really interesting information on this LeBron-Kyrie relationship. Is it irreparably damaged? That's coming up. One of the things I stay away from is when they do political polling. You ever seen political polling? Is this candidate has 51% and this candidate has 50%? That's random phone calls. That's a much more accurate way to see who's going to win an election than doing a Fox News poll or an MSNBC internet poll, where you have a built-in audience rooting for a side, or those people are seeking you to vote. That's why I never believe internet polls. Internet polls don't make any sense. Because if I put something on the internet, the people interested in that will go to it. Whereas if I'm just sitting home and you call me and I have an opinion, let's say National Geographic calls me at home, the magazine, the TV network, and says, what's your favorite country? Well, I wasn't really thinking about it, but I'll just tell you off the top of my head. That survey is more believable than, do you like Brazil? The people that seek Brazil would be looking for that. So a study came out yesterday, and it's an important study, and it validates a theory that we had in football. CTE is a concern. And the study shows, it should be a concern. CTE should be a real concern. But the study shows that 110 of 111 donated brains from the NFL, they had CTE. Well, if you were donating a brain because you thought grandma or grandpa had Alzheimer's, it would be a much higher percentage of Alzheimer's in those brains than people that didn't donate them if you just went and found random brains in America. Yes, CTE is an issue. There is more transparency now. This study confirms a theoretical belief that CTE, the more hits you take and the longer you play, especially on the interior, 40% of the players tested were interior linemen. Bang, bang, bang. It's a problem. It's a concern. Absolutely. But here's 3 things to remember about football. 1, because we're getting transparency with CTE, things are already naturally, the marketplace is changing. I was talking to a USC coach a couple days ago. He said, we're going to quit hitting in September. He goes, we just don't hit as much at practice. We're watching, we're listening, we want healthy players. We'd rather have healthy players than fatigued players. I'm talking to college coaches. and they're just hitting less and less and less. I'm talking to youth coaches. They're not hitting at all. So the first thing we're seeing now is there is a reduction taking place in football right now of tackling at practice and tackling early. It's happening. The marketplace is working. Secondly, we're also seeing something happen over the last 4 to 5 years. Players are retiring early, and I believe they should, especially interior linemen. You should retire late 20s. I think that's right. Go to college, get a degree, finance, business, architecture, medicine, whatever you want. Go to the NFL. If you can make money, do. 28 years old, don't sign a third contract. Go home, sit out. Now, if you're healthy and you feel great, fine. But if you retire early, got no problem with that at all. And the third thing that is happening in football, dealing with CTE, which is a real thing, the study suggests it is kind of illustrating what our theoretical belief was. CTE is prevalent the longer you play football. The third thing that is happening in football, there is a continuing diligence and improvement of football equipment, mostly headgear. In fact, I've already been contacted by a company about a year ago. Zoltan Mesko was a punter, went to Michigan, punted for the New England Patriots, called me out of the blue and said, would you like to invest in a company? I don't know why I didn't, because it's a really smart company, improved headgear. So what is happening in football is, wow, CTE, this confirms longer you play. Now, by the way, these brains were not from players in the last 7-8 years. Football's a lot safer today than it was 30 years ago. Never forget this, that even 20, 25 years ago, the promotional videos used by the NFL, coming up on NBC tonight, coming up on CBS this afternoon, the videos they would show 20 years ago, those hits would get you ejected from a college game and fined and flagged in an NFL game. The game's changing. It's not as violent as it used to be. It's just simply not. We used to use certain tackles as promotional video. They'd get you ejected from college games. I do think this will continue to evolve. I think there's a chance the NFL eventually will guarantee more dollars, empowering the players at some level to have guaranteed money. It'll keep the NFL out of future litigation. Players, therefore, may retire early. Remember, we have a very robust and dynamic college football system that keeps continuing to feed really good players. It's not like the NBA, where there are entire NBA drafts that deliver 3 players, 1 star. Like the NFL draft, there are no bad NFL drafts. Every NFL draft is 7 rounds. Half the league is undrafted. We have a profound minor league system that is furnishing the NFL with all sorts of annual talented players. And so if players hit later, have better equipment, and retire early, those are business adjustments that I think are happening now. I'm rooting for all of them. I don't think there should be any hitting till high school. I do think we should have better equipment, and I do think players should retire earlier. Check, check, check. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
I think it's hard for players to retire early, though, when there's certain rules about their pension and how long you have to have played in order to receive it.
Yes.
So they'll stay longer than they maybe should.
See, I think that's what, over the next 10 years, Christine, I agree with that, is that players have to fight for that. And I think the league now has got so much money. Owners don't want strikes. That's what they should fight for. Better pensions and more guaranteed money.
Therefore, less time served.
And yes, therefore allowing me, by the way, there's so much money in it now, therefore allowing players to not sign a third contract, get out at 28, because the study shows less hitting over time, less likely to get CTE.
Right. Okay, moving on to basketball then. So Derrick Rose reportedly was unwilling to accept a bench role with the Lakers. Now, you can look at this 2 ways. One, maybe he didn't want to play on the bench on a team that probably wouldn't see the playoffs or even compete for a championship. Or 2, it makes me think about the Cavs situation now. So Derrick will be in Cleveland, where he was reportedly not willing to come off the bench in LA. So why would he be okay with it in Cleveland? Yes, they will probably compete for a championship, but it adds a little wrinkle to the Kyrie Irving situation. Like, now Kyrie says, all right, we've got Derrick Rose coming in who didn't want to play off the bench in LA. He's probably going to want to start here. So I have him on my tail the whole time.
So why I don't like the Derrick Rose to the Cavs story. I don't think, you know what he is? He's what they have. a guy that's older and can't defend. They've got a roster full of guys that can't defend.
Yes, but if Kyrie is going to leave, Derek now starts.
That's a worse team. I
agree with you. I agree with you, but doesn't it make you think about the Kyrie situation a little differently?
No, I think Kyrie's got his own ego and Derek's got his own ego. I think they're separate entities. I think Derrick Rose, if he thinks he's going to start over Kyrie, I think he's delusional.
Yes, but it's just an added pressure on Kyrie. And I know you'll say that that's good a lot of the time, but maybe the Cavs knew that this was coming. We heard yesterday that they've known for a while that there's been some issues between LeBron and Kyrie. So, hey, let's bring in Derek as a backup.
Oh, no. I think Derrick Rose is the best on the market of Kyrie Irving. I think Cleveland knows they're in big trouble here. Kyrie asked 2 weeks ago for a trade, and I think they're saying, okay, if we lose Kyrie, we got to have somebody that's relatively dynamic at point, and I think Derek's the best guy in the market.
And now, reportedly, LeBron is eager for Kyrie Irving to be traded. And the Cavs are reportedly trying to trade Kyrie. So if they're trying to do it, who runs that team? LeBron. So obviously LeBron is signing off on this. So I believe this is completely a true report. Cavs wouldn't be trying to do it if LeBron didn't sign off.
No. I think Kyrie is now, he's dead Cav walking. He's out the door.
Yes, but if you were LeBron and you always talk very highly about him being the leader of that team and taking things under his control, if you're LeBron, wouldn't you go to Kyrie and try to convince him to stay or try to mend whatever relationship might have had some troubles?
How do we know that hasn't happened? How do we know for 3 years LeBron hasn't been kissing his butt?
Because all LeBron's done is stuff like this. Now he's eager for him to be traded. There's been nothing coming from LeBron's side of trying to mend the relationship.
Well, that's just what's public.
Right, but you would see a little sliver of it, and we've only seen the complete opposite side.
I think you're taking Kyrie's side, and I really like that. And I think I'm taking the Kyrie is making a defining bad career decision. And we just see the world differently.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And finally...
You're very European now, so I'm very American then.
Just laid back.
Eating French fries all day.
Drink some rosé. And finally, so I was giving Kyrie credit for this. We hadn't heard a peep from him publicly. We've heard leaks and stuff, but nothing actually out of him until now. He put out a video of him singing a song. Do you remember the song that LeBron is probably most famous for?
Oh, God.
This is the one.
I'm coming home.
Yeah.
I'm coming home.
Okay, so you didn't like that either. So it makes me think there's got to be something tied to LeBron when Kyrie released this video.
1, 2, 3. I'm coming home. Tell the world that I'm coming.
Yeah.
First of all, he's a great singer. That was really good. Coming home from China, maybe he's just going home to Cleveland.
Listen,
but
it's
it was
irreparable.
a shot at LeBron.
Yes, clearly a shot at LeBron.
I think we're going to see more coming out from both sides of this, and it's going to get interesting. Basketball season never ended. It just keeps going and
July
going.
26th, we're still talking
I
NBA.
love it. I'm
so
very
do I.
happy. That's the news.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd
If
Line
you're looking
News.
to sell your car, there's a new, better way to do it with TrueCar. Yeah, do it from the comfort of your home. When you're ready to experience a better way to sell or trade in your car, check out TrueCar.com/trade today. He's got a Super Bowl. He was a champ. You know him as an Eagle, a Cardinal, a Packer, and a Bronco linebacker. Our friend Seth Joyner coming on the show today. So I want to start with the Cowboys yesterday and Lucky Whitehead. Okay, so you were, especially with Philadelphia, you were a go-to player, Seth. And there's always been a sense in Dallas, go-to guys are taken care of. I'm okay with it. Mm-hmm. I've never had a problem. You got to treat Michael Jordan different than you treated Steve Kerr or whoever, Will Perdue. But do you think, what was your takeaway on the look yesterday that Jerry defends Ezekiel and then Lucky Whitehead wasn't even at the crime and is released? What did it look like to you?
It was just a terrible look. And it's typical Cowboys. I mean, Jerry says something, and then Jason regurgitates it. But in the big picture, how do you release a guy without not having all the facts and then say that this was the move that was best for the Cowboy organization? It just looks really bad because they've had so many guys on that team over the past 4 or 5 years that had no business in the NFL, yet he defended them and kept them on that team. And here's this kid that was accused of something, and they basically ran him out of town before gathering all the facts. It looks really bad on Jerry's.
Now, he was probably going to get cut anyway because they drafted a return guy. Any Cowboy fan will tell you he was kind of a marginal return guy. So what if I say, well, he's going to get cut anyway?
I don't mind if the numbers came out that way. I get it. I understand. But the way that they let him go looks terrible. It's still, even if, well, why didn't you let him go after the draft? After your first mandatory minicamp, why didn't you let him go then if that was the case? You kept the guy around, and put him in a situation where, maybe he thought he was going to make the team. Maybe he thought he wasn't going to make the team. But these accusations come down, and then on the heels of the accusation, you turn around and you release the guy.
And you defend Ezekiel Elliott. I have a bigger problem. I actually, Seth, have a bigger problem with that. I don't have a problem with a marginal player being cut if they were going to cut him anyway. The timing's bad. The optics aren't great. I had a problem with Jerry not being an attorney, not knowing the Ezekiel Elliott story. There's alleged domestic violence, and he went out and aggressively supported him. Now, I thought that was a terrible look.
Well, if you know anything about Jerry, he's going to defend his guys, especially, when it's those big three. You got Emmett, you got Troy, you got Michael. Okay, now you've got Dez, you got Dak, and you got Zeke. Those guys can do no wrong in Jerry's eyes, and he's going to vehemently, protect those guys and uphold those guys as much as he can, because those guys basically, they're the face of his franchise.
They actually increase his net worth.
No doubt about it. And he takes care of them in ways that the media will never know. Let's just say that I got some information and I know some things that Jerry does for his top guys that 50 other guys on that roster don't enjoy the benefits of.
Seth Joyner, Super Bowl champ, joining us. So the story comes out yesterday, CTE. Now, these were donated brains. So these were people with concerns about it going in. Mm-hmm. And if you had concerns about your grandma, your grandpa, your mom and dad having Alzheimer's, you donated a brain, the percentage would be higher than just random people, their brains and Alzheimer's. That said, CTE is something now. The belief we all had that it was an issue, it's being confirmed like it is an issue for a lot of football players. How do you reconcile that? You played for years. You were a violent player, a physical player. How do you sit with this study?
It's always been a realization. And I think if, some investigative reporter would dig a little deeper, we could come to the conclusion that the NFL always knew that this was an issue. It just kind of came to a head over the last 10 years or so. Concussions have been a real thing, but it was always downplayed because, the owners, coaches, and things like that had the ability to force your hand to go out and play because your job was in jeopardy. If you look at the data, if you look at the movie Concussion and you look at a Mike Webster, you can see and that the NFL had been taking care of Mike Webster a long time. So they, in doing that, they acknowledged the fact that there was some concussion issues, that there were some things that were going on, but they took care of him, but they didn't take care of a whole bunch of other guys. That being said, football is a different kind of game. You have to be a different kind of animal.
That's what I argue. It's not for everybody.
No, you have to be a different kind of animal in order to play this game. And some guys play for different reasons. You got guys that play for the money, strictly for the money. You got guys that play for the notoriety. Hey, I'm so-and-so, and I play in the NFL. And then you got guys that want to be great and truly want to become champions. And I think that the guys who play for the money and play for the notoriety, they'll never be committed. Those guys, to me, have a greater chance of playing the game for a few years. I heard what you guys were talking about previously, playing for a few years.
And then exit.
Pocketing some cash, knowing that they can invest that wisely, and moving on.
Yeah.
The guys that want to be great and the guys that truly want to be champions, they can't walk away from the game because it's a part of who they are. Listen, if there's a magic pill that you could give me right now, I'd go back out and play right now. Right now, with everything that I know about concussions, CTE, and everything else that goes along with it. Because, football is my passion. I love the game. There's nothing like it. There's not the only thing that overcomes or circumvents, the game of football for me, are my 2 kids. But other than that, my goodness, there is no feeling like it. And when I walked off the field for the final time, knowing that was it, I realized that I would never, ever in this lifetime feel what I felt that day ever again.
Your son's 15. He plays.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you talk about it?
Well, we talk about it all the time. I just think, the game of football has given so much to me, and it's taught me so much. It's been one of the greatest educators for me in my life. When you're on a team of 53 guys, you understand, the structure of a team. Everybody's got roles to play on the team. There's so much that you learn because, you've got to sacrifice some things for the team. Sometimes you can't be the man. At other times, you're going to be the man. And you've got to come to terms with that. So you learn how to do that. There's so many life skills that you learn from the game. And I want my son to experience that. Now, I'm aware that there are some dangers. And if he has a concussion, then it might be time for him and I to sit down and have a discussion. Long term, do we continue to do this or not? I know he loves the game. I enjoy watching him play. I know that there's some inherent dangers, but if he wants to play, I'm not going to take that away from him because of fear. Because I don't live my life from a position of fear.
Amen.
And I think that some people live their life from a position of fear. Things can happen every single day that can take your life or alter your life. I'm not going to walk through this life on a what if, maybe. Okay, I'm going to charge straight ahead doing what I do, and whatever the man upstairs delves out, it is what it is.
By the way, where did that study go? I got to see this. I want to challenge you. You're a former Philadelphia Eagle. They have Carson Wentz, Monday morning quarterback, has Carson Wentz 1 spot ahead of Dak Prescott in the quarterback rankings. I'll say this. I think Carson Wentz has more natural talent, than Dak Prescott. I think Dak inherited all the gifts a quarterback could want. Today, if I said to you, Seth, Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott, 10 years, who's better?
From a prototypical standpoint, I say Carson Wentz.
So do I.
The difference is going to be what can the Eagles surround him with?
Thank you.
In difference to what has surrounded Dak, because one of the faults that I have, and I do Eagles pregame on Comcast for the Eagles, and one of my big issues is our lack of desire to run the football. Carson Wentz threw the ball 607 times last year.
That's incredible.
In his college career, he didn't throw that many passes in one season.
I know.
And
by the way, they lost Lane Johnson, so the offensive line was not great.
So one of my things is I believe that the running game is a quarterback's best friend. It is absolutely his best friend. Because when you run the ball, it's the most demoralizing thing to a defense.
Right.
And what the other thing that it does is it begins to open up the entire playbook, because the first time that you go back and you stick that ball out and you play fake and you pull it, the linebackers freeze, the safeties freeze. So now you can get the 5 or 6 yards, on second and short to pick up a first down or create a third and short situation for yourself if you run the ball. But you have to make it we live in it's a quarterback-driven league. And you can't win without a quarterback. But there's only a handful of quarterbacks. I would only take 2 quarterbacks in the NFL, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, to say that, you know what, go out and throw it 60 times a game.
Outside of that, I totally agree.
Not a single one. You've got to give these guys a running game, and specifically a young quarterback. Why was Dak so successful last year? It's not because of his arm. Because he had a 1,500-yard rusher. The guy would rush for 100 yards a game, and you got this big offensive line that are just mashing and mauling defenses, and all of a sudden, Dak goes back and he sticks the ball out and he play passes, and he's got 2 or 3 guys. He don't even know who he wants to throw it to. Guys are so open. But that's what the running game does, and it creates balance, and it keeps defenses, on their toes, and it creates things, for a young quarterback, and it helps a young quarterback to develop the way that he should develop.
Carson Wentz never got any of the gifts last year that Dak got. And so I applaud Monday Morning Quarterback because this will be, a lot of people will criticize it, but I believe Wentz actually is a better quarterback than Dak. I think they'll both end up top 10. I absolutely believe within 3 years, but I think Carson Wentz to me really has more natural talent. I think he's got a better arm. I think he actually is a more clever runner. I think he had nothing. He did not have the gifts last year. We got to run. Seth Joyner, I think you're on Speak for Yourself later.
Yes, I am.
Good stuff. It's the Herd. United States, Jamaica, Gold Cup final tonight. You know where I'll be, baby. Planted in front of a TV. Potentially with an IPA. Nachos could happen. Very excited for the Gold.
An IPA?
I don't know. Why not?
You switching it up from the Corona?
I don't know what I'm going to do tonight. I am adventurous. In the summer, I've whitewater rafted, I've zip-lined,
Wow.
I've jet skied, I've ATV'd in the last week.
So maybe you'll throw some jalapenos on your nachos tonight and get crazy.
I'm going a little all out there lately. It's the new me. You're going to Europe. I'm going cray. So I'm doing
Right here
lot
in
of
the US.
adventure stuff. Get a Casper mattress. Sleep cool and comfortable every night. It's a high-quality mattress, more affordable price. Terms and conditions apply. Just go to Casper.com, code HERD. So here's the story. Kyrie Irving says, I want out. And LeBron's mad. Really mad. And now there's a report that LeBron wants him out. I'll just lay out my opinion. I think Kyrie's making a career-defining mistake. I do not think this will hurt LeBron's image. Tom Brady's got some baggage. Michael Jordan had a lot of baggage. When you're the greatest of all time or considered to be great, it washes over it. Kyrie's not going to be the greatest of all time. He's not the best guard in the league right now. Forget player, not guard. He's probably like third. Doesn't play much defense before LeBron chronically hurt. And at 25 years old with a ring, playing with LeBron, he wants out. I think it's a big mistake. Chauncey Billups, of all the NBA guys through the years I have worked with, none have had the common sense of Chauncey Billups. Wasn't the best player, maybe the best guy, up for GM jobs. He doesn't get what Kyrie's doing either.
You're getting everything you want. You get all the shots you want. You're playing for a great coach who's letting you go to work. Games on the line. They coming to you. You're playing on TV every week. You got your personal. I mean, to me, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. But everybody has their own desires. I mean, he's won a championship already. Maybe he's saying, you know what? Yeah, I won a championship. I did this. I did that. Maybe he wants to be Russell Westbrook, man, and go try to win MVP and get all the shots. And that's the only thing that I can. It's the only sense that I can make of it. And to me, that doesn't make sense.
Okay, let's list the things that Kyrie is getting now. Ring, money, attention, shots, love. Let's list the things that he's not getting. More attention than LeBron. Well, yeah. Like, if you're a model in a room with a supermodel, the supermodel gets more attention than the model.
Okay, you love comparing things to relationships, right? Let's just say a man and a woman are married. The man is cheating on his wife or talking really badly about her to all of his friends, and now she wants out of the marriage. So the man gets mad because she wants out of the marriage. Is that right?
If somebody is cheating on you, you should leave the marriage.
Well, there have been reports that LeBron was looking to bring someone else in instead of Kyrie, maybe Chris Paul.
Those are rumors.
But I'm just saying, or maybe he was talking really poorly about Kyrie to a bunch of people.
Talking poorly. You don't think Kyrie's ever badmouthed LeBron?
I'm just saying, it's makes sense then for Kyrie to want out, and so LeBron can't be mad that Kyrie wants out if he's doing those things.
Okay, forget the whole mad thing. It's just a bad decision. Number one, if Kyrie stayed for one more year and LeBron left, Kyrie is the sympathetic figure.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not saying he didn't have a right to leave. I'm just saying it's a big mistake. Wait a year, get to another final, LeBron leaves, you are then Westbrook. You're going to get the MVP votes because, God, you believed LeBron left. Number two is Kyrie demanding a trade now. The Cavaliers could trade him to the worst team in the league. You have no leverage. People are saying, well, what about Kevin Durant leaving? Kevin Durant was a free agent. Kevin Durant could decide where he wanted to go. The Celtics wanted him. Washington wanted him. Golden State wanted him. Portland wanted him. He chose the best team. This is a bad business decision. He's getting bad advice. He stays one more year, LeBron leaves, which is I don't think he would if Kyrie stayed. I don't think he would. I don't think LeBron went to Cleveland to leave Cleveland. I think what would happen, they'd get to the finals again. They'd probably lose. You'd talk about it, but LeBron would eventually stay. But you would at least be the sympathetic figure, Kyrie. And then secondly, demanding a trade, you don't have the ability to dictate where you fall. This is not like Kevin Durant at all, who's a better player to begin with. It's not comparable. Listen, if Julian Edelman said, today, I am just not happy playing with Tom Brady, you'd be like, okay, first world problems. You're not going to get as much attention as Tom Brady. Kyrie Irving's big complaint here isn't shots, isn't a shoe deal, isn't a title, isn't money. It's I'm not getting as much attention. You would be the franchise guy if you didn't play with the best player in the league. Come on now. These are first world problems. My guest coming up, though, is this is ridiculous. He's on Christine's side, and you're not going to believe this next. In Los Angeles, it's the Herd. This is the Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. My kids are today up in my old stomping grounds, Portland, Oregon. They're sending me beautiful pictures of the greenery.
Why are they there without you?
Well, because they're with their mother.
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah, and they're just...
And, you've got to work.
Yeah, I've got to, occasionally pay some bills here. All right. I want to address just for a couple of minutes. I'm going to get to the LeBron-Kyrie stuff, which I think is just an amazing story. Just give me 2 minutes on this. There's a latest brain study showing that a lot of donated brains from the NFL players had CTE. People are saying it's an alarming number. I think football is changing. Kids are tackling better. I think equipment's getting better. I think players are retiring earlier. These were donated brains from players in a different time. In the last 10 years, the game has changed. In the last 5, it has changed radically. Less hitting at the youth level, better equipment, players retiring earlier, and I think those are all really, really good things. I am not for guys playing until they're 40. I'm not, unless you're maybe a quarterback. I think guys should get out when they can, have money, live a life, and go be an analyst, work on a football site, be a football coach. I think that's a really healthy way. I don't think you should do every job forever. There are stress levels and physically challenging levels on a lot of jobs. Being a cop, that you have to deal with the psychology of carrying a gun and dealing with harsh realities of American life. I don't think you should be a cop forever. I think you should probably eventually get off the street, get into an office, stay in law enforcement, perhaps move into management. There are certain jobs that aren't forever. I can talk forever. It'll hurt my hearing, that's about it, but I can just blah, blah, blah forever. Football, I don't think should be played forever, but I think it should be played. And I will say this, the football culture is never going to change. 69% of Americans do not take their sick days. 69% of Americans don't. That's our culture. We're not European. We don't take days off. We just work hard. That's a culture. The culture of cycling, doping is a way of life, and it will never change. And in professional wrestling, they have dedicated a Wikipedia page to the deaths of pro wrestlers. Drug use, steroids, tired, heart attacks, and there are men lined up around the block to be pro wrestlers. Seth Joyner came on earlier today, and he said, I'd do it all again.
If there's a magic pill that you could give me right now, I'd go back out and play right now. Right now, with everything that I know about concussions, CTE, and everything else that goes along with it. Because, football is my passion. I love the game. There's nothing like it. There's no feeling like it. And when I walked off the field for the final time knowing that was it, I realized that I would never, ever in this lifetime feel what I felt that day ever again.
And he speaks the same words of hundreds of football players I've met and know. There are just men that are drawn to it. They are drawn to risky jobs, to being daredevils, to working on oil rigs, to being cops, to running in buildings when they're on fire. It is part of the American culture. 69% of us don't take our sick days. I don't think football should be played forever, but I think it should be played. All right, here's a guy. Christine's gonna love this guest.
Of course.
Let's bring on longtime rabble-rouser, columnist Rob Parker, who has a Hall of Fame vote, part of our FS1 and Fox Sports commentary group. So my first takeaway, I'm going to throw it out there if you've not heard, which is I think this is a career-defining mistake by Kyrie. I think it will be a blip for LeBron. When you're the greatest of all time, Brady, Michael, Peyton Manning, everything else just gets overwhelmed. I mean, Michael wasn't the best dude. He was a horrible GM, but he's the GOAT. Brady's got Spygate. He's got Deflategate, the kid out of wedlock. He's the GOAT. I don't think 10 years, 15, 20 years from now we're talking about Kyrie left LeBron. I think his plaudits and his accomplishments will overwhelm it. I think Kyrie will never play with anybody as good as LeBron and will never have it this good. He never has to guard the best player, and the best player never guards him, and he shoots more than LeBron. I think it's a massive mistake. But you, Rob Parker, have information to unveil.
I do, Colin. My CWPFs, you know what that is?
What?
Close, warm, personal friends out in Cleveland.
Warm?
Yes, they are warm.
Like alive?
Like alive, and I
Okay.
know who they are.
That was an interesting warm.
Right? But they tell me this is it, and this makes sense to me, that Kyrie found out that after they won the championship, LeBron wanted Kyrie traded for Chris Paul.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, right? Wanted him traded. And I think that he found this out, and it cut him deep, and there's no trust. This makes sense on why Kyrie would want to move on and want to move away from the greatest player on the planet. Colin, you know this. Think about your own personal situation. If you thought the guy who you just went to battle with and won a championship with wanted to ditch you right after that for one of his best friends, it would hurt you.
Yes.
Okay. So that makes sense on why Kyrie has decided, I'm not going to be left at the altar again by LeBron when he decides to do whatever he wants to do and bail on Cleveland like he bailed before, like he bailed in Miami, right? I'm going to do my own thing. And I applaud Kyrie. I think this is if this trade does happen and he gets to go to another team, I will give him a lot of credit for bucking the trend that LeBron started, which is piling up, going to play with all these super teams just to win a championship. Here's a guy saying, first of all, I have a championship in my pocket. And he didn't hitch onto LeBron's wagon to get it. He made the big shot to win that championship for Cleveland. So he has that in his back pocket. Number two, the notion that he would want to go and start a team on his own and be his own guy and stand out there is admirable. He's giving up the chance of a $200 million contract by taking a trade somewhere else. So he's given up the money. And then he even has the New York Knicks on his list. That's admirable. I know he's from New Jersey, but the notion, the Knicks haven't won anything since 1973, that this guy would put that team on his list of a potential team that he would be willing to go. And I think the Knicks are a viable option if you are Cleveland and decide to make the trade. You get Carmelo Anthony. You get a star player for a player of Kyrie's status. So this all makes sense to me. People who are bashing Kyrie, I think they're off base. If all of this information which I've gotten is true, I get it. It would cut me deep.
Okay, but I wasn't.
Thank you.
That was great. Well said.
First of all, I wasn't my wife's first choice. The other guy got emphysema or something. There's pride, and then there's pragmatism. If you work at a newspaper and they've been dying for 20 years, I see this all the time. And journalists are like, no, I believe in the written word. I believe in feeding my kids. Move to radio and TV. Get rid of the pride. grow up, be an adult, and deal with pragmatism.
No.
But he can feed his kids already.
No,
He's
Thank
already
you.
got the
He's
money,
already
he's
done
already
that.
got the ring.
Yes.
Oh, so
now he just wants a better life for him. And
He's
we
letting
can't
his-
say what that means.
He's letting his ego and pride get in the
No.
way
It's
of...
not about that.
He's
It's about
getting rid of-
trust. Come on,
Trust.
Colin. It's about trust. There's only 5 guys on the court, and there's only 2 or 3 that really matter. And if you really could sit there and think that it's okay that after I just help you win a championship, which he gets all the credit for, LeBron gets all the credit for, and now I find out behind my back that we were supposed to be a team and that you were trying to get me ditched, don't tell me that wouldn't bother you. And Kyrie being his own man, I admire that.
This is the opposite of him having ego and pride because he's going against what the mainstream media wants him to do.
Which is to stay there and just go along for the ride. Oh, you're crazy. How could you leave LeBron? I think it's a defining moment, and it says a lot. Even the whole reports talking about LeBron's upset that Kyrie's hurt his image because he doesn't want to play with the greatest player on the planet. Well, but there's a reason now. I think if you really look at this and think about it, it makes a lot of sense.
By the way, was Michael Jordan easy to play with?
No one's talking about easy. It's about a trust factor. Not
Okay.
about. I'm not talking about, oh, he hurt my feelings or he called me a name or he said something. A trust factor. You're my dog. You're my number 2. And now I find out later that you wanted to swap me for your best friend, Chris Paul. If that's all true, that would bother me.
Shaq and Kobe. Okay, do you have to be best friends to play
You don't
together?
have to be best friends, but why are you ditching me when
I didn't. I suggested ditching you.
What?
I
And
didn't.
even so, maybe he just wants something different for himself. We're the ones being judgmental, saying, "Oh, but what is best for you is always to play on the team that's going to go win a championship." Maybe he just wants something else.
Let me ask you, in the history of the NBA, when is the last time a player said, you know what I'd like to leave? A guaranteed trip to the finals.
And I applaud him. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, because you know what, Colin? He wants to do his own thing.
Oh, that's selfish.
No, it's not.
That's dumb.
Not going to the New York Knicks isn't selfish, or going to some other team. Where you want to go to Phoenix to? That's NBA Siberia with Son. I mean, he's talking about going to places that aren't. He's not saying he wants to go play at Golden State. If he said he wanted to go to play at Golden State, then I would be like, this is ridiculous. He is talking about getting from underneath LeBron James' umbrella and doing his own thing. Once the trust was broken, I could see where a guy would say, no, I'm going to be my own guy. I can play basketball. I can play at a high level. And you know what? I can be a number 1 in this league. I was the one who made the game-winning shot to beat the Warriors in that series. You could say all you want. The guy is a fantastic basketball player. And you know what? I give him a lot of credit to buck the AAU mentality that most of these NBA players have, and this follow and pile up and try to win and let there be 2 or 3 teams in the league. Kyrie, if I'm Adam Silver and the NBA people, I applaud this guy to break the mold and say he wants to go out and lead his own team and stop all this piling on together. I think it's terrible.
Your populist musings will probably play well on the bandwidth.com.
Right.
I totally disagree with you. Les Snead, NFL GM, is around the corner. I'm all fired up because I have Carolina and the Rams as my 2 teams doubling their win total this year. Those are my 2 NFL teams. Rams, Carolina, double their win total.
So from 2 to 4, is that what we're talking about?
That is a cheap shot. There's no room for that. You had your populist ramblings. You know, it's interesting how much press that the Cowboys story on Lucky Whitehead has received. Lucky Whitehead's this guy that was going to get cut by the Cowboys anyway. They drafted a punt returner. He was a punt returner. John Goulet is our resident Cowboy expert. He's on the message boards. Lucky Whitehead, explain how good Lucky Whitehead is, John
Wait, you
Goulet.
really read message boards?
When they would do the end around to him, you close your eyes and just hope he didn't lose more than 3 yards.
He's a very marginal player.
As a punt returner, he was fine. You know,
he was going to
didn't
get
screw
cut,
up.
though.
Do you really read message boards? Are you that guy?
Nobody does.
Okay.
He reads them. He doesn't believe them. So Lucky was going to get cut.
But the way they did it
is not good. Jerry did get very defensive yesterday because Jerry has a history of, Jerry sees himself as a player. Jerry's pretty cool, collected guy. Jerry got defensive yesterday about Lucky. Let's listen to this.
I've never talked to a player that I've said, I'm not going to talk about Lucky, I'm going to talk about players. I've never talked to a player that I didn't have empathy. Now, you're talking to somebody here that if y'all have done one thing in my time, and to criticize me is how I will back up a player to a fault. You've done it. You've done it for years for that. I will back them up to a fault so that when we do make a decision around here that in best interest of the team to move on, there's one thing you can forget about, and that is whether you're being fair or whether you've given it consideration of what it means to the individual. That doesn't happen around here.
No, he by the way.
Thank you, guys.
This is one thing with Jerry. He has, to a fault, been pro player. So a lot is being made about how it was handled. They were getting rid of the guy. Now, the way they got rid of it, it looked awful. My bigger issue is not the Lucky Whitehead situation. It's Jerry's aggressive defense of Ezekiel Elliott with domestic violence. I think the media's missing the story here. They're all caught up on Lucky. No, what they should be talking about is Jerry aggressively defending a guy with alleged domestic violence, and Jerry doesn't know anything. Jerry's not an attorney in this situation. This is what you should be talking about.
I have reviewed everything. As you know, he's had his complete president. There is absolutely nothing, not one thing that I've seen that has anything to do with domestic violence. I don't want to answer anymore, but I've seen nothing.
That, to me, is the story. Because in my opinion, with domestic violence, victims often become victims again when people that don't know information back the potential or alleged perpetrator. This is why so many victims of domestic violence don't report it. I think this is I don't even think it's a slippery slope. Stay out of it. When it comes to domestic violence, don't have an opinion. Let the court settle it. Let attorneys settle it. Let the truth come out. This is the story this week. It's not Lucky Whitehead. He is a marginal player who was going to get cut. The way it worked out, the optics are horrible. Like they are. It just doesn't work out. It's like timing is bad. The Ezekiel Elliott story, I don't think owners should be talking about that. I think this should be between the victim, alleged victim, and the alleged perpetrator. Let it play itself out. I've said there's a lot of times in this business where I have no problem having an opinion on something based on the information I have. There are other times I'm going to be last on the story. I said this during the Duke lacrosse story about 10 years ago. I'm going to get it right. I'm not going to get it first. When you're talking about domestic violence, let's not worry about being first on this. Let's worry about getting it right and the absolute definitive truth coming out. That disappoints me with Jerry Jones. Lucky Whitehead does not. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
A lot of the criticism on Dak Prescott last year was that he kind of played things safe. Even you said that, the dink and dunk. Dak and dunk kind
the
of
Dak
thing.
and dunk.
The Dak
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and that he didn't throw the ball down the field. He's talking now about his goals for this upcoming season and said things will change.
It's important for us to attack downfield and show that we've got that threat, that is something that we want to do, is go down the field to make the defenses respect that, make sure they're deep and they're being honest in their coverage so we can have everything underneath. It's about having that balance, not only in the deep and the short and the intermediate pass game, but it's in the run as well. And to me, it's important just to kind of look back at last year and to see what I struggled against, and then kind of to think that may be what the defenses are going to do this year. So it's been important for me this offseason to get better at those things.
Yep.
So if he throws more interceptions, you're okay with it?
Yeah, interceptions don't bother me. And I've told you this, Christine. It's just a change of possession. As long as you don't throw them in your red zone and take points away or deep in your territory. If Dak throws more interceptions, here's what I want to see. I want to see him keeping his completion rate above 60%, somewhere in the 62, 63%. He was like 68. 68 tells me as a rookie, you're being too safe. You shouldn't have a 68% completion percentage as a rookie. That means you're dunking and dacking, okay? You should have been about 61 last year. If you can move up to 64, 65, I don't care about interceptions. But what I like about him is his mindset is that everybody's watching film. They're seeing what I can't do. I got to figure out to take the first step and do and prove to them I can do it. So I do believe he's a franchise quarterback. I missed on him. I didn't think he would be. And I do believe he'll be a lower-end top 10 franchise quarterback. All I want to say is a lot of last year was good O-line, good coach, good running back, good receiver, and a lot of underneath throws. A lot of the success last year was safe success.
That's okay. He can build on it.
That's right.
There's a report now that the Pacers, around the draft time, offered up Paul George for Kyrie Irving, and the Cavs said no. Multiple times this reportedly happened. So that would mean that the Cavs did not understand or really know how bad it was between LeBron and Kyrie at the time and were willing to keep Kyrie instead of getting Paul George. In hindsight, they should have done that.
Yeah, in hindsight. I'm not going to be too critical of Cleveland because, again, it's in hindsight. I think if they'd have known what they know now, they'd make the deal. Absolutely, you'd make the deal.
Yeah, I just wonder why they didn't know. That's not good either. I think people should know.
Well, I don't think
when something is that bad between two players.
Neither one of us thinks the Cavs are brilliantly run. Like, we think the Warriors are really well run. We think the Celtics are we both think they're well run. Mm-hmm. We have our questions about the Clippers, and we got our questions about the Cavs.
And I also wonder, maybe they did know. Maybe they did know, and they still weren't willing to trade for Paul George, which is maybe even worse.
Yeah, that is worse.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, it can't get this bad that quickly. There had to have been something there that they knew about.
You'd hope. A well-run team
And
would.
when they were interviewing for the president position, those guys already knew about it,
yeah,
too.
Chauncey knew about it,
Yeah.
so why didn't the Cavs know about it?
Yep. This looks bad for the Cavs. And finally, Jamal Crawford says that he was upset and hurt over being traded by the Clippers. He played there for 5 seasons, won 6th Man of the Year, and now he's talking about the departure from the Clippers.
I spent 5 years with the Clippers, and for me, that was in my 17-year career. That's the longest I've been in one place. I played more games for the Clippers than I have in NBA for anybody. So for me, that was kind of like home, so to speak, like I said. So you start thinking about all those things, and then all of a sudden things change in the blink of an eye, and things you didn't really see coming, things you didn't know could potentially happen, and then it changes everything. You're almost in shock. You're angry. You're upset. You're hurt. How do you explain it to your family?
At the same time, I don't think that Jamal was necessarily happy with the Clippers. So maybe this will wind up working out for him in the long run. This is a guy, though, I feel bad for because he's played in the league for so long, for so many different teams, and never won a championship. Yeah. And I know that's something, obviously, every guy wants at least one. I'm just happy that it worked out that he could be let go from Atlanta and go to the Timberwolves, which hopefully is a better situation for him.
Yeah, life turned out pretty good for him. That's going to be really fun in Minnesota.
Yeah, it'll be really fun, but they're not going to win a championship. And how much longer does Jamal have to play?
Yeah. They'll win a lot of games, though.
Yeah, and he can be a mentor and a vet and respected, which I don't think he probably got as much of that as he deserved in the Clippers locker room.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
There are few things in the world that delight me more than talking about minutia with football. So my next guest is a perfect guest for me. He's the Los Angeles Rams general manager, a former scout, a player personnel guy for the Falcons. Les Snead joins us on the show today. You may live in Los Angeles, Les Snead, but you've got that southern accent. You could be a country singer. You could honestly be a country singer. You look like a country singer. You sound like a country singer. I have great admiration for you.
That's a career that no one's ever told me I could be. I get the accent, but trust me, you wouldn't want me to start singing.
You played at Auburn, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
SEC country.
No, there's no question. It's got the most good players. We talk about Dak Prescott. Russell Wilson dropped to the 3rd round. And now you watch and you're like, what happened? Dak drops to the 4th round. So you looked at both players on tape. You knew both players. How much of Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott not being drafted early was the fear from the front office that if it didn't work, oh boy, you look bad? And that there's sometimes in your world, there are safer picks that if a Jared Goff doesn't work, well, a lot of people thought Jared Goff was going to be good. Do you ever feel a sense of pressure when you're making picks that it's a populous pick and it is a safe pick even if it doesn't work?
I don't think any of us really work, let's take fear. Hopefully you don't let fear, be the number one dominant variable in making a pick. But you're right, there is probability in, okay, this is a safer player because of X, Y, Z. And to be honest with you, it's probably A through Z. It's not just X, Y, Z. There's probably 24, a lot of variables. But I do think for whatever reason, and the Seahawks and especially the Cowboys know why they didn't pick those players in the second round, chose to pick them in the third and fourth.
It should be noted the Cowboys and Seahawks also passed on these players.
Right. And you know what? Third round and fourth round, guess what? They're good picks. They're good. We'd all, probably most kids growing up would say, you know what? You're going to get drafted by the Seattle Seahawks in the third round and be their starting quarterback or have a chance to be their starting quarterback. Most kids would probably sign up on that. Probably, around junior year of high school?
You signed a player who I saw play in college called Cooper Kupp. Now, he played at Eastern Washington where I went to school. I watched his college career. He's going to be a 60-catch guy year one. He learns your playbook. He's tough. He is sinewy. He is faster than people think. But it's interesting, FCS player. So all you GMs out there, Carson Wentz, who does Carson Wentz play? Take my audience as a general manager driving around right now around the country. The thought process of, okay, they're dominant players at a lower level of football. Were there reservations with Cooper Kupp, who, by the way, so far in camp I've heard has been terrific?
Right. I think what happens is, and that's why I love the third round, love the second round, because at the end of the day, you're probably getting a really good football player. Now, whether Cooper Kupp falls to the third round or Cooper Kupp gets passed up by, let's just call it a lot of Pac-12 teams, it's usually some type of physical trait that he didn't have. But a lot of times I like to say, you know what? Guess what? Cooper never had that physical trait to, let's say, be a 5 or 4 star. But what he did do, because he didn't have that trait, is learn how to go dominate a football game. When you put pads on, you put 11 on the field without that trait. And sometimes it makes that player smarter. And a lot of times I say in the first round, top 10, I like to call it the curse of the top 10 sometimes, because you're trying to find, yes, a good football player, but you're also trying to find that freak of nature, because it's the top 10, and there's, for whatever reason, he's a freak. So don't discount second, third, and fourth rounders for sure.
There's a guy named Malcolm Gladwell who writes books, Blink, Tipping Point, Outliers. He says that second and third round picks 100 years from now or sooner, we'll look back and go, they were more valuable considering the cost than first round picks, which bust almost as much and cost you 2 to 3 times more.
You know what, Colin, too? Revisionist history. Favorite podcast, Walking on the Strand during the summer. Love Malcolm Gladwell. And Malcolm, and then I remember listening to that podcast last year, sometime during the summer, where he went into where he interviewed whomever, came up with the second, third, and fourths are better than first rounders.
Half the guys in this league are undrafted. Lesney joining us, LA Rams general manager. Okay, so here's Jared Goff. And I watched them in college, and I said I felt like the high end was Matt Ryan. That's what I thought. If things worked out, he would be Matt Ryan at the best. Takes his shirt off, doesn't blow me away physically, struggles last year under center. There are things that concern you. Where are you emotionally? Like where is he at? He had a tough opening year. He's got a new staff. Now there's some pressure on him. Year 1's 1, year 2. Where do you think he's at emotionally coming in? New staff, year 2 pressure. Where's he at?
It's interesting, too. I love your comparison. The last guy that probably went viral where takes a shirt off and it's not impressive, who comes to mind is QBs?
Jared Goff.
Well, and there's one other in the league playing now.
Who? Tom Brady.
There you go. Would love for that to work out, right? But probably has nothing to do with, shirt size and all of that. But here's what, going back to Jared. Right now, he's still 22 years old. Let's take Dak and Carson. They're 24 years old. He's right now of the 32 teams, guys listed number 1 at QB. He's the only 22-year-old, listed as a starting QB. So we drafted him for the long term. And what I do like about Jared is last year bothered him, but it didn't affect him. And by that I mean he didn't go in a hole. He didn't lose confidence. Obviously, he didn't go to the golf course to try to practice and get better at golf, considering what happened in Tahoe. But what I do know is when we did interview Sean McVay, and he was in a hotel not far from here, And we had always said we'd interview our first round of coaches. And then we might let them then meet some players like a Jared Goff, like an Aaron Donald, second round. But as we got to know Sean in that first interview, knew, okay, wait a minute, this guy's definitely getting a second interview. So picked up the phone, called Jared, hey, are you in town? Where are you at? Are you close? He was definitely close, came right down. Sean and him had a good conversation. I tell that story in that since that last game, again, hadn't taken many vacations, hadn't gotten better at golf, tried his best to get better at football. And I think we've seen that with the new offensive system through OTAs, and now we got to go through training camp, and obviously the games will speak for themselves.
Les Snead joining us, Rams general manager. One of the things I love about football, I love the structure of it. I love the analytics of it. It's not really about the player. It's about the systems winning this league. Really more than just players winning this league. Houston's had better talent, in my opinion, a lot of years than New England, but it's a certain system. Ultimately, like I see Dan Quinn using a little bit of the Seahawks system. Pete Carroll and Belichick now are often duplicated or mimicked in some things. Do you have a football Bible, a belief system on what ideally as you're growing you'd like to be? Like, where are your football roots? If you were going to perfectly analyze what you are at your best, what is your football culture? What is your Bible of football belief to be absolutely true?
If I kept it real simple, and like you said, it's a system game, and you definitely smarts and intelligence, very important, maybe more important than physical traits. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to get a chance in this league, there's going to be a certain element that you're going to meet a Mendoza line that you can play, and you've got the physical traits to do it. I think New England's proven that. Another thing similar to what you said about Cooper Kupp, instincts, and guess what? That's your central nervous system working together with your muscles and your brain, what you've soaked in, how you process it, how you do it quickly. Physics and geometry, that's instincts, right? As Cooper Kupp, maybe I'm not this fast, maybe I'm not this quick. So guess what? I got to use a different angle, find another way to get open. And then another thing, I think it's a short area, explosive game. So the quicker you can get on the opponent, whether it's blocking or trying to get off a block, the quicker you can engage with that person and do your thing on an individual level, that really helps. And now from there, I think it goes into systems. And a lot of times that's picking, the right coaching staff. And you look at us, we've had a good defense. We've been 4-3. We bring in Wade. He's 3-4. Everybody's like, uh-oh. And I could tell you there's some issues. If you actually do that, you could set yourself back. But by knowing the coaches, knowing the systems, Wade's 3-4, very similar in principle to our 4-3. And
you
he
also
likes to
drafted a linebacker.
Right. He likes to call it an under in defense. Hey, over the last 4 years, we like to pick players who were quick, who could get an edge, maybe disrupt in the backfield. Some 3-4s are what you hear is the old two gap, and there's bigger, stronger, less quicker players. But Wade's 3-4 system is very similar to ours. So you know what? You can bring in a Wade, and everything fits, and the puzzle fits. So I think, the coaches, you got to have the right systems. And then you got to pick the players that are right for that system. And if you do it the other way around, you're probably going to mess this thing up.
If you look at, I play a game. I have no life. When I fly in an airplane, I play this game. Christine, don't make fun of me.
I know the game because I've seen you do it on a plane.
I'm kind of a loser.
Christine,
so,
do you have a life?
Do I have a life?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so
it's important.
Here's the game I play. If I had John, don't look at me like that. Okay, don't judge me. So this is the game I always play. So I write I'll simplify it for our audience, 1 through 8.
Okay.
And I am a general manager, and my first 8 picks all hit. You can do it in college. Your first 8 recruits, you take over a job, they all hit. 1 through 8, what are the positions? And by the way, 1 is slightly better than 2, better than 3, better than 4, better than 5. Meaning the first guy you pick is the best player, second, third. So what I'm asking you as a GM, you get 8 picks to start an NFL franchise, positions, knowing that these are all going to be good players, 8 not as good as 1. What are the 8 positions? Because this is what Al Davis and John Madden, these are what these guys in Belichick and Parcells argue about. What are the 8 positions? This will be fun.
This will be fun.
Okay. Number 1 is what?
For me, it's going to be a QB.
Okay.
That's easy.
Okay, that's the easy one.
That's easy.
What is number 2?
Number 2, somebody that's going to affect the QB.
DE.
A rusher.
Number 3. Because I agree with you to this point. Now, number 3, I'm going to go defensive tackle. Because I believe if you give me an edge rusher and somebody that you have to double in the trenches, I can affect running and passing game. And by the way, that interior guy makes the defensive end depending on the offensive line you face. So where do you go in 3?
Very close to you because I do. We're going to agree philosophically, especially in our league, quarterbacks are really good. Systems are really good. It's hard to cover them. But if you can get pressure on them from your front 7, and again, whether that's inside, blitzing linebacker, guess what you might be able to do? Stress that QB. Make them get the ball out quicker than they normally want to, and you win from there. But I think my number 3 position would be skill on offense. Depending on who the player is, could be a dominant tight end, could be a dominant wide receiver. I just think, hey, you've got to score in this league and to compete for championships. There's teams with really good QBs, really good passing games, and I think that would be number 3.
We just disagree on that.
But
okay.
we're very close on
our philosophies.
So my 4th may be another rusher, as an example.
Okay. Where does corner land? Al Davis used to believe that it was all about corners, right? Where do corners land for you?
Corners, very important. Now, I think what happens, it's interesting in corner, is I think they're either really good and they can actually, let's call it shut people down. The old Revis Island, the Deion Sanders. Then there's an element where mom, dad, God didn't give them quite the physical skills or maybe the intuition to do that, and they can manage a game and manage it well. But the quarterbacks in this league can get the ball out quickly. The systems are really good.
So
it's hard for that corner to affect a game.
It's very interesting. So you're saying as the leagues become a bubble screen league, the reduction of importance of the corner. Okay, here are my top 7 positions. Here's mine. Okay, so put this on the screen for our audience. I went quarterback, defensive tackle, defensive end, left tackle, center, corner, and corner. You know what? My corners are stupid. I sound dumb now. See, I went heavy corner. I'm wrong.
You're not necessarily wrong because people would – we've got – if you did 32 GMs, they'd probably have a different top 8. But I think you're on to something there.
Is this what you do on the airplane, by the way?
You
when
know
you're
what?
Traveling?
I'm similar to Colin. Don't have a life.
Okay.
It's all of this. And you definitely try to do this. And what's interesting when you do this too is it's interesting for me to have my philosophy as a GM, but I'm just one person in a building, like you said. It's an orchestra. There's a lot of us that's got to work together. So what we've done since we've hired Sean and still working through it is, okay, Wade, Sean, what do you guys need to get done what we want to get done?
Yeah, but you can't trust coaches, Les. They want to win now. I don't know if I trust coaches.
But you got to work with them.
Okay, got to work with them. I wouldn't trust them. Like, I don't trust Goulet, but I have to work with him. I like you. I just don't trust you. Oh. But I have to work with you.
When you're making the hire, though, you should go into it trusting your coach.
I trust Dave, our guest booker. John, not so much. It's Les Snead, country singer Les Snead. You should bring Bradshaw has an album out. You may want to consider it. You've got those dulcet tones of a country star, I think, in you.
He's got maybe a little more swag brand than myself.
He does.
He could probably put out an album and nobody laugh. If I put out an album, I guarantee you on this show, somewhere along the way, you're ripping me. They're just a gut, intuition, hunt, instincts.
Stop by our show more. Yeah, you're probably right.
You could go record something real quick and we'll play it.
That would be
really
artists.
That would really be a bad
PR
decision by you.
Director would actually would not let that happen.
We got to take a break. Les Snead, Rams GM. It's the Herd. So I was hanging out with a buddy of mine, Eric, when I went to Utah and hung out in the woods like an outdoorsman.
Were there 4 guys or 3?
It was me and Eric and a bunch of kids and my wife and stuff. And Eric and I were just talking about stuff, and he asked me a question, and he said to me at one time, he goes, you know what I'm really into right now? And he said, the United States men's national team. And I said, so am I. I said, outside of like a huge NFL game, maybe a huge NBA or college football game, my favorite thing to watch now is soccer. And it's funny that I've always believed, Christine, that the audience largely drives the bus for this show. Is that I go in the morning and I look what you're talking about. And then every day after the show, the next morning, I look at ratings and I see what you like and what you don't. And I move toward what the audience drives this show. I do not. You tell me what you like, and then I'm going to talk about it. And I that's why you don't, it doesn't matter if I get an occasional anecdotal hockey tweet. I see the numbers. You're not into it. There's one exception. And I don't think it's really an exception because clearly, if you look at numbers, America loves the United States men's national team. But this is one of these things where I'm going to go with my gut instinct. This is the most talented team. And all the players are not there for the Gold Cup tonight. We have about 75% of our good players. We don't have Christian Pulisic. We don't have Bobby Wood. We don't have Jeff Cameron. We don't have John Brooks. We have about 70% of our good players. This is not our World Cup team. Our World Cup team is better than this. I think we'll beat Jamaica tonight. We'll win the Gold Cup. But I will tell you, a lot of you think that I talk about this because Fox Sports has the World Cup. Simply not true. I don't know if, John, you were there, but there was a turning point about 4 to 5 years ago with me. I think you had just left me that I turned into soccer. My mom was British. I grew up in the Northwest. I grew up with the Sounders and soccer. I always liked it. My mom got me a soccer kit when we went to Europe. Johan Cruyff. I played soccer on a little board. But about 5 or 6 years ago, I just got the bug. And my stepsons were playing video games with soccer, and I couldn't tell the difference between real soccer and the video games. I started watching it, playing it, and I got the bug. Were you around my former employer then, John?
Yeah, you started getting really into it. It wasn't just for guys named Ethan anymore.
No, and it was about 5 years ago. There's no question, and I don't really care what any research says. I'm totally into it. When my buddy Eric on the camping trip said, I love watching him play, I'm like, dude, I'm completely into him. They also have a 17-year-old kid who won't play in this World Cup, but will play in the next World Cup. I think his name is Josh Sargent, who many think will be one of the top 4 or 5 players in the history of America. So I'm totally into it. They play tonight. They play on Fox Sports 1. I don't care if you think I'm talking about it because we have it. I talked about it 5 years ago. I'm totally into the United States men's national team. It's the only sport I routinely tweet about during the games.
And you and Eric now have a newfound bromance.
We could just talk about Bobby Wood and Christian Pulisic and Tim Howard and stuff. All right, hour 3 is coming up. Good stuff so far. Anthony Herron, Big Ant. Going to introduce him to you. Cool guy. Coming up hour 3 in L.A. It's The Herd. This is The Herd, wherever you may be. However you may be listening, live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy is joining me as we segue into our final hour. A very interesting show today. Seth Joyner, Rob Parker, Les Snead. And I'm going to introduce you in the next 30 minutes to a college football analyst who I think is just stupendous. And I listened to a game last year, and I liked him so much I direct messaged him. And then he came to Los Angeles and said, I'm in town, let's meet. And I'm bringing him on the show today. I think he's just superbly prepared. Former great college player. And I think played for an hour or 2 in the NFL. And I'm going to introduce you to him today. I don't know how many people know him. You do if you love college football. Big Ten, Pac-12, super analyst. I want to start, Christine, with this. There's no perfect way to be a parent, right? Like, it's hard to be a parent. I mean, marriage is hard. Parenting, to me, is even harder. Because you're dealing with little human beings. They're not human doings, they're human beings. And you can try to mold them in certain ways, but my son and my daughter are just different people. They shouldn't be. Same house, right? Same mom, same dad, same upbringing, socioeconomics, all the same. Yet they're totally different. And as a parent all the time, I talk to other parents about this, and it's fascinating. You're like, not only are all people different, but isn't it amazing that you can have 2 girls or 2 boys, same mom, same dad, same friends, same school, same DNA, and one is aggressive and hysterical, and one is quiet, shy, and lacks confidence. And you're like, how does it work? It is remarkable when you have children, or if you do, that you think you have a lot of control. but you don't. They get your DNA, and they come into this world, and I think what happens with parents, and I'm guilty of this, that we all want our kids to have better lives than we did, even though our lives were not as bad in most cases. We kind of were melodramatic and, oh, my God, I didn't get this. When I look back at my childhood, I've gone to therapy. It's like my life was pretty fun. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. So we tend to kind of baby our kids. We want them to have a better life than ourselves. Now, the downside to this, of course, is that is not necessarily good parenting. Is that they have now done books and studies that you can over-compliment your kid. You're the best. You're number one. Nobody can top you. Does not make for the better kid. It's unrealistic. And this is just true about life and about people, is that the harder the road, the more dexterity, mental toughness that is developed. And I look at Kyrie Irving today, and I believe Kyrie Irving has the number one pick syndrome. And this is a syndrome that you see in all sports, but you see it a lot in the NBA. John Wall, Dwight Howard, Blake Griffin, Kyrie Irving, Derrick Rose. They are the number one pick. And I am a number one pick, and I should have a great shoe deal. And my problems are the most important problems, and I should be the face of the franchise. I am a number one pick. And I would tell all of those players, Blake Griffin, you're not as good as Chris Paul. And Dwight Howard, you're not right now as good as Brook Lopez. And Kyrie, Derrick Rose, you're not as good as Jimmy Butler. John Wall, you're not as good right now, arguably, as Isaiah Thomas. And Kyrie Irving, you're not as good as LeBron. Is that Kyrie Irving is complaining about things that other players are dreaming of. He's 25 years old. He's got a ring. He's rich, and he is treated like a superstar. And only 4 or 5 players in the league even get more shots. But he's got the number one pick syndrome. The franchise should be built around me. Yes, in most cases, it should be built around the number one pick. There is, of course, one exception, or 2 or 3 or 4, if you plan a team with Magic, or Bird, or Michael Jordan, or LeBron James. Then the team's not going to be built around you. By the way, Andrew Wiggins, the number one pick, I'd build around Karl Anthony Towns. This is what happens with expectations. You're great. You're number one. Here's a reality with number one picks. Go to the last 50. 10 have been absolute busts. In fact, I'll give you another stat. Of the last 20 number one NBA picks, that's 2 decades. Kyrie is one of only 2 that has a ring, is treated like a star. The others, LeBron James. That Kyrie Irving is complaining about first world problems. That any other player in this league would be overwhelmed to play with LeBron, to have a title, to have generational worth, to have an amazing shoe deal, to travel globally, to get first-class superstar in the NBA treatment because he goes to the finals. Now, Rob Parker came on earlier today, and he has a story, and that story is that LeBron, after they won the title a couple of years ago, went to the front office and said, let's trade for Chris Paul. Okay, that would tick me off. I would not be happy. But I'll just say this again about Kyrie Irving, the number one pick syndrome. Cam Newton has this persecution complex. The league doesn't like me. My coaches don't like me. Nothing goes my way. You never hear that from Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Drew Brees. You never hear that. They weren't number one picks. This is the reality of elevation of people. That Kyrie Irving is getting an NBA life that is the dream of virtually every other player. Play with LeBron, win a title, be featured in the offense, be beloved, have a shoe deal, get on TV constantly. Who wouldn't want that deal? I mean, that to me, this is a defining mistake by Kyrie Irving. Like, there are times in life where pragmatism has to usurp pride. And I know if that story's true about Chris Paul, I know it would tick you off. But just think about it this way. If you just wait a year and LeBron does leave, you're the sympathetic figure. But by demanding a trade now, you're not a free agent. Cleveland can send you to Siberia, and you can, thump your chest and say, I did it the right way. I'm not going to go to a winner. But that's pride. Let's talk about pragmatism. We know this to be true in the NBA. We know that agents and shoe companies dictate a lot of the terms in this league. Do you know what agents and shoe companies love? When NBA players are playing in June. Kyrie Irving now likely will no longer be playing in June. And he's going to look back at this. 25 rings, shoe deal, title, and LeBron James. And he's going to go, wow, I'm on a 33-win team, and the season's over in April. And the shoe company doesn't want to extend the contract because I'm not on TV when people actually watch the NBA. Like, just take all the emotion out of it. Remember, when Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City to Golden State, analytics told you it was the right move because he would be a better, more efficient player without Russell Westbrook. But look at the analytics with Kyrie and LeBron. This is not KD going to the Warriors. Kyrie Irving is more efficient with LeBron than without him. So again, let's just repeat. You're getting TV publicity. You're getting on TV in May and June. You've got a shoe deal. You're getting to the championship. You've got a ring. You're treated like a star. Your efficiency numbers are better with him than without him. But he doesn't love me as much as I want him to love me. You may not be your wife's first choice, but she's with you. She's with you. She had kids with you. She has a life with you. She may have been in love with somebody years ago. Sometimes you just have to deal with pragmatism over pride. Suck it up. Deal with it. Don't worry about Chris Paul. And just realize how great you have it in the NBA.
That's okay for you, knowing that maybe your wife wanted someone else, but you're the backup choice? You can live with that?
Well, there's a... Does
every day knowing that she's thinking, oh, that guy would have been better at that too. Wish that guy were here, not you.
Let me just say this. She may think that now.
But wouldn't that get to you if you knew that? It would eat away at you over time.
I don't think I've ever been, in professional life or personal life, I don't think I've been the number one choice a lot of times. I think I have worked my way into a good position.
So you worked your way into your wife's favor?
I absolutely outworked people.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, this was Rob Parker earlier on why Kyrie Irving wants out of Cleveland.
Kyrie found out that after they won the championship, LeBron wanted Kyrie traded for Chris Paul.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, right? Wanted him traded. And I think that he found this out, and it cut him deep, and there's no trust. So that makes sense on why Kyrie has decided, I'm not going to be left at the altar again by LeBron when he decides to do whatever he wants to do and bail on Cleveland like he bailed before, like he bailed in Miami, right? I'm going to do my own thing. Here's a guy saying, first of all, I have a championship in my pocket. And he didn't hitch on to LeBron's wagon to get it. He made the big shot to win that championship for Cleveland. So he has that in his back pocket. Number two, the notion that he would want to go and start a team on his own and be his own guy and stand out there is admirable. He's giving up the chance of a $200 million contract by taking a trade somewhere else. So he's given up the money. And then he even has the New York Knicks on his list. That's admirable. I know he's from New Jersey, but the notion the Knicks haven't won anything since 1973, that this guy would put that team on his list of a potential team that he would be willing to go. And I think the Knicks are a viable option if you are Cleveland and decide to make the trade. You get Carmelo Anthony. You get a star player for a player of Kyrie's status. So this all makes sense to me.
Let me just repeat what Rob Parker is saying. Kyrie is better served playing for James Dolan than LeBron James. Now, I want to repeat that. Pride playing for James Dolan over pragmatism, sucking it up, and playing with LeBron, even though he's not your favorite, you're not his favorite point guard. I think you just have to realize sometimes you're not everybody's first choice. Get over it. Get over the ego. Deal with pragmatism. Leaving LeBron at 25 would be a massive mistake.
Or maybe he just wants to be number one for someone. What's wrong with that?
Dumb.
Maybe you want to be married to someone who wants you more than anyone else.
Let's get off the relationship metaphors.
You're the one who brought it up. I mean, I'm just saying that would eat away at me if I knew that the guy I was with wanted some other girl all the time.
Right. Maybe. I don't know. I guess you could see the world that way. A lot of unpacking to do on that. Heard brought to you by JCPenney. Guys, JCPenney celebrating Black Friday in July. This Friday and Saturday, save with amazing spotlight deals at Black Friday prices. 60% off brands like Stafford, Foundry, and more, including big and tall sizes. That's getting your pennies worth, JCPenney. Speaking of Foundry, I watched Founder flying back from Miami. You ever seen that movie?
You watched what?
The Founder.
Oh, yes, I remember you said that.
With Michael Keaton.
I watched Lion instead.
Oh, that's very sad. I don't know if I could take that.
Or it's uplifting, depending on how you look at it.
You didn't like Founder?
No, it was good, but it wasn't all that uplifting either.
It wasn't very uplifting. It kind of shows the dark side of business and how snarky and shaky and sharky it can be. I guess wrong words. But you watched Lion, which is very emotional.
Yeah, it's good though. It made me want to adopt.
Well, you should do that. Adoption's very prolifically important in our country. You should do that. You know, that's what you should do. You should adopt many children
instead of being pregnant with them. Just
No.
them.
I'm not saying that wouldn't be.
Do both.
I'm saying that would be fine too. But I think adoption's a really cool thing.
So if you wanted me to have 13 kids, so now it's somewhere around 15.
I think if you adopted 6 and had 7, I'd be good with that. I'd have to have an occasional fill-in because you couldn't work all the time.
No, I better get started.
I barely get you now with Ninja.
I know.
You're off a lot with Ninja.
Not anymore. I'm done now.
For like the season.
Yeah.
But that's a very powerful show. Did you guys win an Emmy, by the way?
We're nominated. Second time nominated. I hope we win.
When are the Emmys?
In a couple months.
Yeah. So those are
you want to watch
just TV Emmys?
Yes, it's the primetime Emmys.
Is that the one anybody watches or the show?
No, that's the one that everyone watches.
Is it televised?
Of course it's televised. It's like the big one where all the scripted shows that you like, they're also up. My category is just reality competition.
It'd be kind of ironic if they didn't televise the Emmys.
Like primetime Emmys are in prime time.
So this is the big Emmys that you're up for.
It's the big Emmys.
So you could be on stage.
Yes.
Like the Oscars, Emmys, Grammys.
Yes. You know this happened last year too. I went to the Emmys and if we won,
so
I would have gone up on stage.
It'd be like Meryl Streep and you.
Yeah. It could be. Last year I went and the whole, not that this would matter to you, but the whole cast of Game of Thrones was sitting right behind me. It was really cool.
Wow. I want to win a Tony. I want to be on Broadway. I've always told you that.
Oh, me too. We should do it together.
Oh, yeah. That'd be super.
Wait, I think that you could greatly influence the Academy and the Emmy voters if you would watch American Ninja Warrior and just let the people know how great it is.
All right.
Wouldn't that be cool if I won an Emmy?
If you're on stage at the Emmys, I'm going to get emotional.
But you could be the reason for it.
And that emotion would be anger that you're getting way more publicity than me. Yeah, you should have to take me. You'll need some more.
You can be my date.
Okay. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, this is interesting. This is a TMZ sports story that just came out. And you are a fan of Justin Bieber, right?
I do like Justin Bieber.
I do too. I think he's very talented.
Yeah.
Recently just canceled the rest of his tour. And are you looking at me strangely or something else?
No, just read. I don't understand this story. Go ahead.
I promise this has to do with sports. I promise.
Okay.
Why are you so confused?
I'm just keep going.
Okay. So Justin Bieber just canceled the rest of his tour.
Yes.
And reportedly, it was because has had some meetings with a pastor named Carl Lentz, who's, talking about him doing what's best for himself, and that he just really felt like he needed to take some time off after being on the road for a couple years, and that's what led to his decision.
A pastor, okay.
Okay. That is relevant because Kyrie Irving has apparently been meeting with this pastor as well, talking about his situation with LeBron and what he should do. And this report here says that Irving and Lentz have discussed the star point guard's desire to step out of LeBron's shadow. And while the pastor didn't advise Irving to leave Cleveland, he did reportedly hear what Kyrie had to say about the situation and encouraged him to do whatever was best for him.
How does TMZ know that?
Maybe they talked to the pastor.
I don't think
Somebody in the church.
I don't think pastors should be talking about NBA issues. I think the pastor should talk about the man upstairs and Revelations and John 3:16. I don't think he should be talking about NBA trade deadline deals.
Well, maybe it was someone else in the church or someone else in the know who knew that this was going on. But this kind of fully supports what I'm saying and what Rob Parker is saying, that Kyrie, for whatever reason, feels like what is best for himself is to remove himself from the Cavaliers. Regardless of what everyone else is going to think, whether he'll win a championship again, he just feels it is best for him as a person. We have to remember that athletes are people.
Oh,
like
good
sometimes
Lord.
we forget.
Yeah,
athletes
rich people. Rich people
They
who
are
get
rich.
shoe deals and private jets.
That doesn't mean that they don't have feelings.
Good Lord.
Really?
Sheesh. First world problems. Gosh.
Hey, he wants to go make his life better. I'm not going to hate on anyone for doing that. The new Madden rankings, and I'm a big fan of Madden.
Yeah.
The new Madden rankings are out, and NFL rookies are now trying to guess what their rating was. And when they found out the reality of what they got, some were not very happy.
They were talking about my Madden ratings for sure.
As an overall player, I'm going 91.
Start with, in the 80 area. Overall, 78 class.
Now let's see how close you actually were.
85.
Okay, yeah.
87.
71.
What?
88.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about.
It's because I'm a quarterback. All right.
That's 66.
I think that's really great. Like, what if you could rate think what you'd be rated if there was a radio host ranking
Oh, I don't even
system?
want to.
No, and then to see what the reality is, because, they measure them on all different types of their physical attributes and what they can do on the field. I think that's really funny.
It was.
And finally, I feel like this is something that you'd be really interested in just because you like watching the History Channel and like airplane stuff. And do you watch Shark Week?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So part of Shark Week and the hype was around Michael Phelps. He was going to swim against a great white shark. People were very disappointed when they saw what this actually was because it was CGI.
Yes.
And they said that the shark looked something like a Sharknado shark, which great movie, by the way.
Yeah.
So here is Michael Phelps responding to all the criticism of him and his race against the shark.
Everybody wants to try to pick on something or say something or complain about something. So I had fun racing a shark and seeing those animals up close and personal. And if somebody actually wants to get in the water and race side by side with a great white, go ahead. You're not going to get the shark to swim in a straight line. And it would be interesting to see. We'll leave it at that.
He's being totally serious. Like, he's offended that people are upset
Well, a lot of
that he didn't race an actual shark.
I was disappointed by it. I thought I was going to get a real...
But shouldn't Phelps, laugh it off? Like, it was against a CGI shark, and he's racing against a shark. He seems deeply upset about
Discovery
this.
Channel made us think we were going to get a real shark against Michael Phelps. And we got this baloney.
How do you think that was going to happen?
Well, that's not. Then don't promote it like that. I did. That's why.
Well,
that's why I
they
watched.
also promoted Sharknado. Did you think sharks were actually going to be spinning around in a tornado?
That was a movie.
But still,
This was
the only way you could do it is if you had two very long cages like a mouse trap, and you put I don't know what sharks eat, fish at the end, and saw the shark just swim to the end.
I think a lot of people, myself included, were deeply disappointed.
Well, hey, Michael Phelps is very upset by people like you then.
All right, Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
So about a year ago, I was watching a USC game, and there was an analyst on there, and I could not believe his depth of knowledge. And I direct messaged them, and I'm like, dude, I don't know who you are, but man, you're really good on this stuff. And then he direct messaged me back or text back or something like that. And then I went and looked up on like Wikipedia who this guy is, and he was a defensive lineman at Iowa, and he was doing Pac-12 games, and he'd done Big Ten games. And I'm like, dude, you need to come on my show because I think you're really good. And if you've watched Big Ten or a little Pac-12, you know who he is Anthony Herron. We're going to bring him on the show today. Let's bring on the big fella who played at Iowa. I'll get into that in a couple minutes. By the way, I'll get into my Iowa stuff.
Did you hear that, Colin?
It's like an action movie.
I know. He just cracked his knuckles.
Yes.
That was my supervillain sound effect to make sure Colin's intimidated.
I want to read this. So at Big Ten Media Days, Joel Klatt said this. I hear Colin. I listen to him almost every day. In particular, my ears perk up whenever he talks about college football. But there's always this level of vitriol for Iowa that was saved for Iowa. I'm always like, that's so peculiar. I don't understand. I know in the radio biz that can be good radio, but I don't understand it. Then Gus Johnson took a shot at me. Gus Johnson of Fox Sports says, I know my colleague Colin Cowherd had a whole lot of stuff to say about Iowa. I don't agree with him.
His colleague.
He's not out there. He hasn't worked locker rooms and traveled to Iowa City and spent time with the community. I've been calling Iowa basketball for a long time. I've called Iowa football. It's not heaven, it's Iowa. All right, whatever. So what do you make as an Iowa guy about what I say about Iowa is that I call them the fake ID of college football because they never play the big schedule.
So there's a shirt now associated with this.
Okay, so my point is, Anthony, isn't it a fair criticism, though? That they have not scheduled.
I'm not going to go Jim Everett on them, so no.
But my criticism is it's a good program, but they have ducked out of conference opponents. Ohio State's playing them, Wisconsin's playing LSU, Michigan State's playing them. Iowa's not. Is my criticism wholly unfair?
Wholly unfair, no, because the part where you're accurate is that Iowa's out-of-conference schedule does not rival everyone in the country. Now, if you're going to compare them to, let's say, an LSU, who is commonly in the national championship discussion, it's not like LSU goes out and schedules someone in the top 5 every season in their non-conference.
Point taken.
Georgia doesn't schedule someone in the top 5 every season during their non-conference. There's a few programs in the country, and this is the mistake that we end up making when evaluating what the schedule should be, because we get on the pregame shows and there's certain weekends where there's not some kind of top 10 clash over and over again, and then we sort of bemoan the scheduling in college football. You're not going to play a nationally ranked opponent every week. When there's 9 conference games out of your 12-game schedule, which the Big Ten has joined the Pac-12 and now doing, you're not always going to have a nationally ranked opponent in your non-conference.
I don't always want one. But every other year, can you roll an Oklahoma into town?
But the term fake ID denotes that you think Iowa is claiming to be something they're not. Kirk Ferentz is not a coach, and I played it for him for 2 years, had 2 years with Hayden Fry before that after I played as a true freshman. Kirk Ferentz doesn't go to the mic and say, compare us to Alabama. We're the best team in the country. We'll go out there and smoke everybody in a 40-yard dash. That's not how he's built the program. That's not the image he's set around the program. So if you want to talk like another coach I love, Brett Bielema is braggadocious at the mic. Brett Bielema has a lot of bravado. That's not how Kirk carries himself. So if you're going to talk about where Brett Bielema or, I know you spent a lot of time talking about Rex Ryan, that from the image that's being presented to me is more arguable than the point you're making about Iowa.
But Anthony, if I submitted to you, they need to stiffen their out-of-conference schedule. Is that a reasonable submission?
No. We sit here and we talk, especially the last couple of seasons, about the Big Ten potentially being the best conference in college football. 9 conference games. Like 2 years ago, Iowa went undefeated, and this was when your diatribe, your anti-Hawkeye diatribe began. They went 12-0 within the Big Ten, which was highly regarded that particular season, and then the opportunity to go to the Big Ten championship game against Michigan State and potentially have a shot at a college football playoff. The fact that there's not that one game where they faced a nationally ranked opponent in the non-conference, then it's just up to the college football playoff committee to determine if their resume suits it. But from one season to the next, just to cherry pick and say that Iowa is this one team in the country who may have a great year, that's not being fair to the Hawkeyes, because you don't do that with a lot of the teams in the SEC. And I know you don't have a problem bagging on the SEC, but we assume that because the SEC for a long time was viewed as the best conference in the country, it didn't matter what their out-of-conference schedule is. The in-conference matters. A team like Stanford that's playing 9 games plus Notre Dame, that's a big deal. Within the Pac-12, 9 games is a big deal. The SEC has 8 conference games at this point. One of the last holdouts who's only doing 8 8. And a lot of these teams, look at Tennessee.
They're bad.
Look at LSU.
They're not very good.
Their out-of-conference schedule is a joke, but we don't bag on them the way that you right now with the fake ID T-shirt are bagging on my beloved Hawkeyes.
Okay, let's switch gears to the Pac-12. Okay. When you look at the conference, the other day my friend Jason McIntyre said the ACC has the best teams, the Big Ten has the best coaches, the Pac-12 has the best quarterbacks. You've spent time doing the Sam Darnold, the Josh Rosen stuff. Is Sam Darnold so gifted that he simply, and there's Jake Browning at Washington, does Sam Darnold just carry USC to this conference? He is just simply better. He's Andrew Luck level, but they have USC talent, not Stanford talent.
Sam Darnold is special, and what makes him so special, and we talk about this a lot when I'm on the Pac-12 network, is the fact that he's got the ability to stand in the pocket, a la Josh Rosen, and he's got an arm that can hit every blade of grass on the field. Extremely strong and extremely gifted with his ability to switch trajectories and velocity with his passes. So that's special as a quarterback. Where Clay Helton, who still has his job, which was a little different than where we started last season, right? Clay Helton still coaching USC right now. He and his offensive coordinator, T. Martin, have been able to morph that system that they're doing offensively away from kind of the standard pro-style USC quarterback and suit the special skills of Sam Darnold as this big, strong guy with a strong arm, but knowing how mobile he is, he's an improvisational wizard. He can go outside the pocket. He can do things that aren't within the script of the play and still make special things happen. So that's where he's very different than any other Trojans quarterback we've seen.
There are reports, and I feel this from USC coaches. Lynn Swann did not hire Clay Helton.
Right.
You know how the game works, Anthony. That this is a really important season, and that Lynn Swann feels like an elite coach takes this team at least to the Final Four. Do you sense that Clay Helton's in the clear, or that this is a real, because ADs like to hire their coaches. Mm-hmm. I don't know how close they are. Do you feel like Clay, with Darnold, has to be a Final Four team to validate his staff?
No, because I don't see Lynn Swann. I've been around Lynn Swann in a lot of different areas. I was an executive with the Arena Football League when he was an owner of an arena football team. So I've seen Lynn from an executive setting a lot over the years. He's not a guy who's so, impetuous with the way he might try to make some kind of quick decision. I don't see him as a guy who's going to say that if there's not X number of wins on the resume this year, or if we don't make the college football playoff, he's going to take the entire picture into account and say whether or not Clay Helton is the right coach for his program. Because at 1-3 last year, you know very well, a lot of folks, yourself included, were saying get rid of Clay Helton then. He stuck by him. He got all the tangible evidence from all of 2016 into account and then made an informed decision. He's going to take that same approach because that's how Lynn rolls.
Let's segue back to the Big Ten, which you know both these conferences very well. It is Pac-12 Media Day today, and you've been kind enough to join us and pull yourself away from the meetings. There is this feeling that they used to say this about Kurt Schilling, that the day he pitched, he was a horse. The rest of the days, he was a horse's blank. Okay, Jim Harbaugh wears people out. When he left Stanford, it was like there was a lot of happy people. When you look at Jim and his quirkiness and his rigidity, Anthony, what's the long term? Do you think he's there 6, 8, 9 years? Or is this, I'm going to turn the program around, I'm going to win my alma mater a title, and go back to the NFL? Because he is hard. I've already heard stories. He's hard on people.
I'm going to tell you, well, I'll share a quick personal Jim Harbaugh story. My rookie year in the NFL, I was with the Detroit Lions. It was the very last NFL training camp that Jim went into, and I was running with the twos at this particular point, and Jim was there, and he was the quarterback on the opposite side. And I'm from Chicago, grew up a huge Bears fan, and so to me, Jim Harbaugh lining up under center across from me, it's a big deal. So he takes a snap. We're not allowed to hit the quarterbacks, of course, at this point, even in 01, and he goes out on a bootleg action, and I start to chase him. And I'm just giving chase. I'm not going to tackle Jim Harbaugh. We're in a red zone drill. He takes off and sprints and then dives across the pylon. He gets up, he throws the ball in the air, lets out this big yell. He's got grass all in his face mask, and for him, it looks like it's a play in the Super Bowl. And honestly made me look a little bit bad. It's like, well, why aren't you going as hard as this guy who's almost 50 years old basically playing football? I went in the locker room, went and asked him about it afterwards, and he, even though he was minutes and minutes removed from that moment, got this glare in his eye and said, man, that's football. And it was just this semi-crazed look, but that level of intensity that's always there, it's there when he's on the recruiting trail, it's there when he's coaching, it's there when apparently he's at home with his family. So yes, that can wear some people thin. I don't believe in Ann Arbor, Jim Harbaugh's level of intensity will wear thin as quickly as it would anywhere else because he's beloved there, because that's his alma mater.
He's the favored son.
He is.
By the way, they knew going in what he is.
Right. We've seen Jim Harbaugh in action.
Anthony Herron, former Iowa defensive lineman, Pac-12 and Big Ten guy. Now you're doing Pac-12 games, and we're introducing him to our audience, and I think you're seeing why. He's got so many interesting things to say. So my feeling is Ohio State wins the Big Ten. I almost think Penn State's a better team, but I don't like their schedule. I think it goes Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, then Wisconsin. Kind of give me your roll out of how you think, because I think schedules in college, the Patriots can win anywhere. The Steelers can win anywhere. The Packers can win anywhere. It's hard to take 19-year-old kids into Columbus on a Saturday night and win. I think I like Ohio State in the conference. Who do you like?
I like what James Franklin's been building at Penn State. I don't think they're there yet. I agree with you there, because when you look at last season, they looked fairly ordinary until they got hot at the end. They had the upset, and then they went on this run, and they nearly won the Rose Bowl against a great USC team. Penn State, to me, is not there yet. Urban Meyer is at a point similar to Nick Saban, where I'm willing to assume that the talent that he's going to replace all those NFL draft picks with, that the talent's there and that the talent will be able to execute at the level of the previous player. So I'm fine. I'm comfortable picking Ohio State. So yeah, I would agree Ohio State 1, Penn State 2. Beyond that, though, I don't have Michigan 3 right now, because from what I see of Jim Harbaugh in Ann Arbor so far, and when you take previous stops into account, to me, with the 49ers, there was a base that was in place that Mike Singletary had built of toughness, of some of that rigidity that Jim Harbaugh was able to really build on and do great things. He built a program with Stanford, and David Shaw has taken that to new heights. What we've seen so far in Michigan, and people can hate on Brady Hoke all they want, he repositioned that program very different from what Rich Rodriguez had, where he went away from what was a quickness and finesse style and came back into a more pro style, a big physical mentality. These players who went to the NFL from last year, where the Senior Bowl was basically Michigan versus the world, those are Brady Hoke guys. And so to me, Jim Harbaugh, I'm waiting to see on the field tangibly whether or not in his third season, which will now be the majority of Jim Harbaugh's players, is the Michigan program still there and able to compete at the level that we're assuming they will? I don't think he's at the point right now where we just assume Jim Harbaugh replacing so many starters from last year, that the program's going to take off in the exact same way it did last season.
Anthony Herron, I want you to be a regular on our show. I want you to move to Los Angeles, and on a regular basis, you and Klatt can come on. And
Christine can tell me the cool places to hang out.
And you and Klatt.
Listen to the show.
And help me hate on Colin's hatred for Iowa.
Yeah, I don't know where he even got that shirt.
It's not hatred.
It's sad.
I'm adding context.
Where did you get that shirt?
Great question.
Do they sell that somewhere?
Can I go LeBron on it? Can we take a lighter? Can I just go can I do the lighting it on fire deal like when LeBron left?
You can
Cleveland?
get this at theherdnow.com.
Wow.
Commerce. All
can
right,
we
buddy.
diminish the clicks on the site?
So come on now. I am very happy with today's show. I think it's been very well booked. Seth Joyner was terrific. Rob Parker was nuts. I got to talk to Les Snead, a GM, and how good is Anthony Herron? Holy moly, he's good. He's
I like anyone who will call you out.
Listen, I was listening to that guy in the air, and I literally direct message. I'm like, dude, I don't know who you are, but you're really good. I literally did.
It's a good way to start.
And I'm like, dude, I'm listening to you watching this game. I'm like, you're good. Who are you? And then he was like, I know who you are. America's sports media icon.
Oh,
and I'm like, thank you.
That guy who hates Iowa.
Anyway, so then we have a relationship, and I think that was an exhibition right there.
Yeah.
That guy is, he's terrific. So, and I like him now more than Joel Klatt, because Joel Klatt ripped me to the media. Joel Klatt ripped me. Did you hear what Joel Klatt said about me?
What did he say?
And Gus Johnson. These are my beloved colleagues.
Wow.
They sat in Chicago. They went to Big Ten Media Days, and here's what mean Joel Klatt said. I hear I hear Colin. I listen to him almost every day when I can. Of course he does. In particular, my ears perk up whenever he talks about college football. There's always this level of vitriol for Iowa that was saved for Iowa. I'm always like, that's so peculiar. And then he had me on the show a while back, and he starts talking about C.J. Beathard and George Kittle. He's talking about how great those guys are going to the NFL, and I'm like, hold on. You bashed him for 3 years at Iowa. You can't all of a sudden praise an NFL team for drafting Iowa guys when you call them the fake ID of college football. That is outrageous criticism.
Those are fighting words.
To be fair, you've never criticized the players. You've criticized
the
their
administration.
Schedule. Right. You've never said anything bad about an Iowa player.
No. I think they put out nice players. I think the administration should actually occasionally get on the old iPhone and call somebody besides Tennessee roast beef tech and Panera Bread. Why don't you call Oklahoma once in a while? The kids are great. Love the kids at Iowa. They're terrific kids. Love the kids at Iowa. Doug Gottlieb on the show. Oh, Joel Klatt's on the show tomorrow.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Well, maybe he can answer some of these outrageous claims. We'll see. Very exciting. Good stuff today. We had all sorts of stuff today on the show, and I really, really liked it. The LeBron Kyrie stuff is a gift from heaven for us.
Yep.
Rob Parker came on and said his sources tell him that LeBron James, after they won against Golden State, went to the front office and said, "Let's get rid of Kyrie and let's trade for Chris Paul." And Rob Parker, and I trust Rob Parker's sources. He's been around 30 years doing this. And then that got back to, by the way, how did that get back to Kyrie Irving? Like if LeBron, let's say LeBron did go to the front office and suggested that. How the hell does that get back to Kyrie Irving? Loose lips sink ships? How about if LeBron comes and tells you something in confidence, you keep your mouth quiet? This is what I've said. Look at the history of the Cavaliers pre-LeBron. Awful, good with LeBron. Then he leaves awful, comes back good with LeBron. There's a history here that they don't know what they're doing, and LeBron is basically carrying them on his shoulders. So, and by the way, if Kyrie leaves and LeBron left, they'd be lousy again. Mm-hmm. So, people tell me things all the time. I don't have to spread news and gossip. Like if let's say LeBron did go to the Cavs front office, the GM at the time, and he said, "Listen, Kyrie doesn't play defense, Chris Paul does. Kyrie's immature, Chris Paul isn't, and I think we'd be better with Chris Paul. He would shut down Steph Curry, can defend him, and Chris Paul's also a better passer than Kyrie Irving. He's not as great offensively, but we got enough players here offensively. We got Kevin, we got me, that maybe, and so let's say LeBron did that. Well, then why would Cleveland go back and tell Kyrie or his agent? Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. So, I mean, by the way, there's a lot of things people know. You don't have to open your mouth and tell everybody. Like, again, LeBron said that, not like it's attorney-client privilege, but LeBron said that thinking it wouldn't get back to Kyrie. I don't know. I don't think that's great. It's the Herd.